Hey guys, Pedro here to tell you about the debut record from Ryujin, kinda debut record, self-titled Ryujin, out January 12th on Napalm Records. The album has 12 tracks, 57 minutes in length, and like I said earlier, it's kind of the debut because they released 4 records under the name Giza. They are a Japanese melodic death metal band, but you can also refer to them as samurai metal. Now, as far as the design goes, I like the way they structure this album. It has an intro, and then once you get over that intro, perhaps the only piece of calm and serenity that the record offers after that, it's pretty much a roller coaster ride. Very dynamic, very fluid, both musically and vocally. That roller coaster ride doesn't end. It never feels like it ends until you get to the last 2 tracks that have this essence of bonus tracks. They're not bonus tracks, but they feel like bonus tracks. One of the reasons why they feel that way is that one of them is a Linked Horizon cover, and the other is Saigo no Hoshi featuring Heafy on vocals. Now that song comes earlier in the record, but it's in Japanese and obviously doesn't have Heafy on it, so having this at the end of the record, it feels like 2 covers to finish the album off, but still tying into the overall experience of that samurai metal that this album really has a lot of through and through. Once you get to the sound, there are 2 main ingredients on this album. One that comes from the past of the band, being Giza, and the other one that it was there but becomes a lot more predominant on this album. Starting off with that one that becomes more predominant on this album, that is the folk influence, the samurai, the Japanese folk influences that we see in the sound, in the lyrics, in the vocals, in the artwork, and everything surrounding this record. I've always felt like that Japanese influence has always been there, even when they were performing under the name of Giza. But now as Ryujin, that has come to the forefront and is not just an add-on or something that gets tagged along, it's something that's going to become part of their DNA. In this record you see that, from the use of traditional Japanese instruments that definitely bring a different aroma, bring a different vibe to their sound, blending them in with a more melodic death metal approach, really creating something interesting and unique, and something that doesn't stay stale from song to song, because they're able to bring other influences to the table, change the dynamics of the songs, and in some tracks depend a lot more on that folk influence to be the main conductor of the experience, and in some tracks allowing that element to be just an add-on to everything else that is happening. This allows for a sense of continuity, and this allows for the album to be balanced from that point of view while still being very dynamic as far as the overall experience is concerned. The other element of the sound that this album has that it's really noticeable from the quality and from it coming from the past into the present is the guitar work. If there's one thing that these guys have always been known for, is incredible guitar work, incredible sound, great solos, and really creating albums and music that's very guitar focused and very guitar driven. This record is no different. Just because it has that more folk influence, it doesn't mean that the guitars are taking a backstage to it. By the contrary, the guitars are still one of the main driving forces on this record. In some songs where the folk elements push themselves a little bit more to the forefront, you start to see the guitars becoming more of a passenger and taking turns on who stands behind the wheel. But overall, when you look at this record, the quality of the album and the quality of the sound, it really has that guitar-centric experience through and through. You see the quality of it, you see how it pushes itself, you see how dominant it is. So the DNA of the band, while changing from one angle, is remaining very consistent in the other. So kudos to them for continuing that incredible guitar work that we saw with Giza, bringing it forward to Ryujin. Now, as far as the vocals are concerned, this album has a massive fingerprint of Heafy. So if you are a Trivium fan, if you are a Heafy fan, you should definitely check out this album. He's featured in a lot of the tracks on this record. I think 5 tracks in total, 4 or 5 tracks in total. I can't quite remember exactly the number, but quite a few. Around half of this album has his fingerprint in terms of being on the track. He also produced the record, so he technically had his fingerprint on every single song on this album. I think it was a nice add-on, is a nice feature, is a nice spice to the record, and perhaps will help the band create a little bit more of a footprint for themselves, having Matt behind their work and having Matt included in their work. As they move forward, I think they have to move away from that shadow, because it is a big shadow, and they'll have to stand on their own. The quality of this record, musically, vocally, lyrically, gives me the idea that they will be able to do that. In the past, when I reviewed Asian Chaos, I referred to them as the Japanese Dragon Force because of the guitar playing, the fast riffs, the fast sound, the incredible melodies. They really had that experience to them. When I listen to this album, I think I'm going to call them more of the Japanese Insaferum, because that's how this album comes across. A lot more of a melodic death metal experience, that folk, Japanese folk experience coming from the instruments, the lyrics, the vocals. When you put it all together, that's what you really have here. An album that is heavy, that is groovy, that it's melodic, that has some symphonic elements sporadically throughout the album, but definitely heavily folk influence with still great guitar sound all around. Now, as far as favorite tracks on this record, I want to start off by picking Dragonfly Free. This is a song that's very heavy, fast, and also folky. It has this amazing blend, and you could see the dynamic of the track, and you can see the life of the track with the harsh vocals behind it. This is an album that has a lot of dynamics, like I said, both musically and vocally. And on this track, you really feel that side of the record coming to life, because the harshness and the heaviness of the vocals work really well, specifically in the verses. You can feel like that is the heaviest moment of the song, that is the heaviest spot that the track offers, and then definitely a lot more melodic, a lot brighter, a lot cleaner, because the clean vocals come in the chorus and they change the presence of the song. The two are very well connected with one another. You almost need that cleaner, brighter sound and vocal performance in the chorus in order to make that heaviness of the verses feel more engaging and more connective. There's definitely that Japanese folk influence, and this would be a perfect track to combine that folk influence with their melodic death metal sound in creating a song that's very robust, that's very balanced in the overall perspective in what it offers and what it gives, and it finds a way of transitioning really well from the peaks to the valleys. Next we have Scream of the Dragon. Great tempo. The guitars really push themselves forward, and it's a track where you have two different experiences, very different experiences from verses to chorus. While Dragonfly Free connects those two different experiences really well and they feel like one segues into the other, it's not the case with Scream of the Dragon. When I was listening to this song, the verses of the track felt like I was listening to something out of Necrogoblikon, like death metal, like grimy death metal with a groove to it. It comes and goes. It has this sense of movement within it, heavy but still groovy, still very palpable, and still really easy to digest considering how heavy it is, both musically and vocally. Then once you get into the chorus is really bright, really clean, almost power metalish, but more classic heavy metal sounding. And the two worlds couldn't be further apart from one another. And there's actually not something that, in my opinion, really connects the two. It really feels like a break between one and the other. You're having two very different experiences within one single song. I like it because I still find my way around the song. I didn't find it jolting at all. This track has an outstanding solo section that just goes on forever. And then that solo section tapers off towards the end of the song, and it blends into that more classic heavy metal sound of the chorus. And that all together really makes the song work well, even though it has these two very distinct impressions and experiences from verses to chorus. And that's why this song really stood out to me. Last but definitely not least, Gekirin. This is a more theatrical song. This song has some symphonic elements in it, not a lot. I wouldn't go as far as to say that this is a symphonic melodic death metal song, but there's definitely some symphonic elements that create a sense of theater, create a sense of a play happening in front of you. Even the way the vocals work in this track, the sound helps, but then the vocals kind of bring that experience to life, and more than a track is a visual experience. Even though you're not seeing anything, you're just listening to it. I love the texture of this song. I love the approach. That folkiness, that Japanese folkiness is still infused there. The melodic death metal sound is still infused in there, and then bringing that symphonic elements really makes this track a little bit bigger, a little bit brighter, creating more depth and more texture all around. This is it, Ryujin with their self-titled Ryujin. out January 12th on Napalm Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Hit me up in the comment section. I'll see you all at the next video. Take care, guys.